How you doing, everybody? Buying into hype, huh? Hey, David, how you doing? My greatest mistake buying a watch was buying a 40 millimeter rather than a 46 millimeter marathon dive watch. The amount of information on the dial required smaller numbers and letters. That's one really interesting point, David. I hadn't heard of that one. Hi, Niner. I hope it wasn't my PF Tonda Panda discount, but still, if you like it, you like it. Hey, Rancher was buying into hype. No, I think we all buy into hype at some point. It just some of us buy into different kinds of hype. Hey, Paul, buying a micro brand without research. You know, Paul, it's awfully hard. I mean, sometimes you see these great deals with micro brands. Um, Yeah, I would have a lot to say on that. We ought to have a session just on micro brands and some of the things about them. Hi, Brian. How you doing? Philip, how are you? Any bar fights this week? Not this week. I had my wife wouldn't let me go. She kept me inside. Hi, 11. Hi, HRM Aldolfo. Dominic, good to see you. Um, you know, sometimes you can make a big mistake and not realize it's a mistake until much later. And if you can learn from it, even better. But sometimes it's really hard. Hi, watch Mike do. My biggest mistake was buying micro brands. Have only had issues with them. Man, I tell you, that's sort of interesting. I don't know. I think what some micro brands are. And I can't say this is all of them or the most of them, but I do think that some of them, somebody says, well, now if I put these movements together and slap something together, I can make a micro brand. And it depends, I think, a lot on the quality of everything you put into it. The, who is, I was going to say, Larique's not even a brand. We're just a group of watch collectors. But that's an interesting point. Gee whiz. I don't know. Have anybody else had problems with micro brands? I've got a feeling I can think of one reason why. If a person puts a certain micro brand together and the idea is, I'm going to make a quick buck, okay, and they make a quick buck with it, but do they have any horology? All they're concerned about sometimes is how good they look. This was something I was worried about with Anne Ordain, because Anne Ordain was making these really nice enamel dials, and that was their business. And then all of a sudden they come out with something. I thought, well, I wonder what kind of movement they're going to put into it. And if you're going to put an inexpensive movement in it, you really got to know something about the quality of that. I mean, the quality of the inexpensive movement, because some of them are pretty good and some of them are awful. And I think that's one of the problems. I think the cheaper they are, the more awful they are. Hi, 11. Buying my wife a watch. How was that a mistake? That's sort of, I I've gotten my wife several watch. I mean, I got a feeling that some of them were really, sort of like getting something. Boy, I'd like to have that watch in my collection, but no way I can do that. And I think at least two of my watches that I got originally for myself, my wife ended up with. I'm glad she did, because that meant I could get more for mine. The quality control is often lacking. I think you're right. Hey, Niner. Ultimately, we're all been on a major high with this hobby for the last going on decade. It's blowing up. Yeah, that's true. Hey, Mark. Now there's a guy, Mark. Mark. He only gets FP joints, and he gets good ones too. Brian, let's see. My first luxury watch was a Rolex Explorer. I got confused with the reference number and ordered the 36 millimeter when I thought I was ordering a 39 millimeter. It only cost me the return shipping. That's still though, that is really important. More guys that I know, and they'll find a really good deal and they'll end up with, and I'm not talking about a new watch. I'm talking about one they may not be able to get their money back on. And it's usually with something like a 36 millimeter and they wanted a 39 or they wanted a 40, something like that. But that's, to me, that's the important lesson. When you're buying a watch, look at all of the details. I was really high on this one watch. I forgot what one it was. I think it was a Vacheron Constantin. And I thought, well, this is a cool watch. It was a great price. A lot of times you'll find lower prices with smaller watches. Now, if you got a smaller wrist and you like smaller ones, you can find a lot of good deals for that. Hey, David. I've had luck with micro brands. Bought a Charlie Paris watch and it runs within spec. Yeah, it's like it has Swiss movement and can't complain. I got my I got this watch running to spec and it's got a cheap Chinese movement. It was only, I think, about 95 seconds off when I first started adjusting it, and I got it down to about 1 or 2 seconds, really. And it's simply a matter of sometimes the guys who get watches and with the micro brands, some of the Siegel movements have not been lubricated, and so you get an unlubricated movement, and you're going to have problems pretty quick with them. With the newer materials, you don't have that as much of a problem like that, but sometimes that can be a problem. So somebody may figure, well, I'll get some of these cheap and make a bundle on something. It's possible. Hey, my biggest mistake was buying a homage piece because I couldn't afford the original. It was often being mistaken for the original, and I had to keep explaining it wasn't. This is our homage. This is our homage to the Breguet Classique homage. It's, if anybody thought that, oh, that's pretty big for a Classique. Cost $87. It wasn't a cheap one. It wasn't $22,000. Oh, hey, Niner, I see. Oh, take care, Niner. Good night. Hey, Andrew, my biggest mistake are when I did not buy when I should have. That's all of our big mistakes. That's a good one. For example, when I didn't buy a Roger Dubuis Easy Diver in need of service, wouldn't have been a steal, but I got cold feet. Yeah, that's a really interesting thing. I've got no problem if I can get a good enough price on something. I've got no problem as soon as I get it, is ship it off and have it serviced. That happened with a Parmigiani, and thing came back from service, and it was incredibly good. It also happened with my Chanel, that Chanel Monsieur, that watch, and it happened to Michael Caleb too. We both got them, and they both ran into the same problem, and it was on the jumping hours wouldn't work every now and then. In other words, wouldn't jump, and then sometimes it would jump, and it was really a mess. But thing about Chanel, they fixed the whole thing. First of all, from New York, they shipped it back to Switzerland, and they fixed it, and then they sent it to another second one here in the U.S. Place to check it out, and they checked it out. Then they finally sent it back to me. Didn't charge me for anything, including the shipment. So it can depend on the who's doing what for you. Let's see. Hey, Philip, my biggest mistake is the watches that, yeah, I didn't buy. Now I can afford them. Yeah, we all can too. I only buy Patek and Rolex, so no mistakes. Oh yeah. Oh, okay. I'll just keep on moving. Just moving along. Just smile and wave. Hey, Mike, dude, I've been watching for Chanel Monsieur in a straw gold. Yeah, they call it beige gold. My very favorite color. I love that color. Um, when I got mine, it was they only had white gold, but they had a white dial, or it was like more of like a silverish dial, but it was a very light dial, and but it was in white gold rather than that beige gold. The beige gold has really taken off. When I first got mine, and I went to the retail place, the white gold was more than the beige gold, and then when I went back, the beige gold was more expensive than the white gold, and the price of those things been going up, and of course, with most watches, we see that. Yes, the beige gold. Yeah, I like that, man. That is really nice. Hey, quarters eye. My biggest mistake was I bought I knew it, and I wanted a Holy Trinity. I had a Patek Philippe, a Vacheron Constantin, and I wanted an Audemars Piguet. And I found one that wasn't a Royal Oak, and I bought it. I got it. It was for a decent price. It wasn't a great price, but it was decent. And I went to New York with my friend. We went to the shop and looked at it, and it looked just didn't. It looked small, but I bought it anyway. And the guy who was the seller there was sort of a jerk too. Those things, but you make a mistake. Another one. You also can find out a mistake later on. I got I put in a low ball. I thought was a low ball on an El Leroy, and that watch showed up, and oh my god, it came in this gorgeous box. It was a beautiful watch, really beautiful. Osmiar, I think was the Osmiar, something like that. Gorgeous watch. And then I found out later they had a cheap movement, and after they lied to me about it, and I was really just, I was mad at that poor watch for a long time, and I finally traded it. But it was, you don't know until afterwards. That's why knowing about the movement's important. Something else I did, excuse me, sneeze. Something else I did that I could have easily regretted, and I didn't. And I got dumb luck. It was just sheer dumb luck that I'm not mad at myself as a mistake. And that was when I got that Fabergé Alexi. I put in a low ball on that one and figured, nothing's going to happen. And they said, sold. So, sort of committed at that point. And so I got it, and I just love it. It's really funny. Sometimes you do something stupid, and then believe me, I think that is stupid because I really hadn't researched it or anything. I just, maybe I knew the movement on it, but I knew Fabergé, or I thought I knew Fabergé because Fabergé had one of the chronograph movements, and they had won a Grand Prix award for this DTZ watch. And so I figured, well, it must be a good one, and it turned out to be a great one. But I didn't. I should have done my homework ahead of time, so it wasn't a disaster. Listen, 11. If you like Patek Philippe, fine. I used to have a Calatrava. I love my Calatrava. I don't like silicone hairsprings. That's the only thing I have against Calatrava. I like Rolexes because Rolex kept their parachrome. Okay, so it's not the design and things about Patek Philippe. I've had Patek Philippe's, and there's some other ones I want. In fact, I may get another one that was before 2009 when they started stuffing silicon in them. But that's that's my view. David, I guess I could complain about my Boucher watch from the 80s, which has a Valjoux. That's a nice watch. Runs great, but it's noisy. That's I don't have a problem with noisy movements, okay, because I can't hear that well. Found out that the cost of servicing the chronograph double retrograde, including polishing the case and bracelet with shipping, is nearly $2,000. Ouch! Yeah, I found out that my FP Journes are they're not cheap to service either. My biggest regret, not a mistake per se, was selling my Enigma manual bezel winder. Oh, that's interesting. They're hard to find. Okay, yeah, selling a watch. I haven't regretted selling any of my watches. Ex Some I probably should have sold rather than using them as trade-ins. I use that Audemars Piguet as a trade-in, on my, overseas, and I sort of didn't do well on the trade-in. So that was I mean, I should if I hadn't have bought it in the first place, another story. Andrew, I can think of 2 times I thought I made a mistake. It wasn't love at first sight, but I gave it a week of honest wear and ultimately, bought it in the best way. Yeah, that's cool. Something the hardest thing to do is to, save up. I've got there because during the saving process, you can run into a lot of really good deals. And I'm in the process of doing that now. Okay. Okay. What else? What else is that? Hi, 11. Patek uses silicon for its anti-magnetic properties and durability. Why no love for the sterns? Stearns? I'm not sure what you mean by the Stearns. If you mean the guy who's the head of Patek Philippe, he had some great things. At one time, he would not allow stop movements in it. Look, if you compare, take for example, 11. There's Patek Philippe's. You buy a Patek Philippe, and there's someone you can sell it in a minute. Okay, they have their resale value. You take H. Moser, for example, or you take Rolex. Rolex has a parachrome hairspring that's non-magnetic and all of the other things. Plus, you can adjust it. Try adjust it on one of the post 2009 Patek Philippe's. You can't because you can't adjust that. It, it, there was really no reason for all of the big or the major Swiss watch companies to go into this whole thing about high horology and a lot of other things that they did when it was quartz. Quartz will keep better time than all of the silicon working watches. And I mean, all of the silicon hairspring watches. All right. But now they're unadjustable and they lose something. Now, I didn't start watch collections to have a bunch of, have plastic or silicon in them. I wanted the original stuff. And then when Swatch, Rolex, and Patek Philippe went into cahoots together. Now, one of the things is that Patek Philippe, probably the people like me and a lot of other collectors, they could care less about us. They really could. And what they want to do is sell a watch that is very reliable. And the Patek Philippe, you can take one of the silicon hairsprings. They come in these sheets like silicone does. Pop one out, put it in the watch. You don't have to do, I mean, and Bob's your uncle. It's done. It's not going to the heat and the cold. It's non-magnetic. All of these good things. Fine. Okay. That's not what I got into watch collection for. If I wanted to, I could get a G-Shock or something, and they will keep equally good time as the most expensive Patek Philippe. So it's not so much that I don't like Patek Philippe. I don't like what they did with their hairsprings, and it's not so much that I love Rolex. It's just I like what they did with their hairsprings. Now, the if you look at the top watchmakers, um, the top independents, they're all using Strawman hairsprings, which is the one that was developed by Precision Engineering for H. Moser. So if you like your Patek Philippe, and there's lots of them I like before 2009, I may grab one someday. But enjoy the doggone thing. It's like at the Stearns, if you mean the guy who's the head of it, he was great. For years, he would not allow um, stop movements in it. What do they call it? Hacking. Because his engineers told him that thing that coming down on the balance wheel was not good for the movement. And so, he's not an idiot, but there's they're in it for a business, not to keep collectors like me happy. All right. So enjoy it. And then you can turn around and sell it for a lot. Okay, world and watches. My biggest regret was to think more watches makes me more happy. That's an interesting thought. If you like a watch, you like it. I think that's the way I feel about a lot of these other ones. Watches like Breguet and some of these other ones that also were become under the thumb of Swatch, and they all again, that's another group of watches that went with the silicon, and it's much more economical all the way around to put that stuff in their watches and have the kind of like a Strawman or something like that. Okay, HRM. In removing the date complication and hacking seconds of my ETA 2892. Taking out the hacking second. Listen, my Lang and Hein has hacking seconds. They have, but like I said, that was something that I admired about Patek Philippe. Just like I admire the fact that most of the men's watches in Rolex are still using a parachrome hairspring. And see, oh, well, you're not keeping up with change. We're not dealing with the most modern timekeeping. We're dealing with sort of an archaic type of timekeeping. My wife has an Apple Watch. Man, she loves that Apple Watch. It keeps perfect time. It tells her all kinds of stuff. If her phone rings in the other room, and she can talk to a watch like Dick Tracy. So, anyway. Um, and removing the date okay. All right. E11. Does this mean that Paddock is into making money and H. Moser is in it for passion? Paddock Philippe is a lot better than H. Moser making money. I'll tell you that. It's sort of funny. They had it's not that H. Moser isn't. H. Moser was screwing around for a while and having a lot of fun. And then then they started settling down. The H. Moser watches I have, like double hairsprings, those things were very expensive to produce. Now they finally have brought them back out again as part of a tourbillon. But um, it's sort of when Patek Philippe comes out with do they have a Remetois Galate in any of their watches? 11. Hey, Russell, I bought a vintage Hoyer day date in 33 millimeter. That's awfully small. Did you have fun with it? Vintage Gurin, too small, trying to find an ETA 7751. Yeah, there's a um oh boy. There you go, 11. It's not your job, it's your passion. You love the things, knock yourself out. And that's I think that goes for everybody. Like I said, don't listen to me. I've got my own reasons for doing something. I just don't like repeating them endlessly, but there we are. Um, you know, it's a passion. It's to me, it's an addiction. It's not it like I said, early on in collecting, I found this guy who had this Tag Heuers, and there was one model of Tag Heuer that Tag Heuer was making, and it had all these little different colors and stuff. And all this guy wanted to do was to collect all these different colors. I knew another guy who all he wanted was Omegas, and he had this beautiful Omega collection. And that's all he cared about were Omegas. He didn't care about any of the other ones. He didn't care about the thing I think probably most admirable about the guy. He could care less about the resale price. Okay, he just loved Omegas. Hey, Mike Deuce, Swiss Alp with the Henry double hairspring, fantastic. Yeah, those are very rare. I've got the Henry. Um, I tell you what, I absolutely love that they did, and I saw it, and so I know one exists, but I don't think I could ever get it. Was the Icon watch, and they've got icon watches. Okay, so what else do you got? What other mistakes we make? Trying to think. Let me see what I got over here. No mistakes there. I've been making fewer mistakes, but I'll keep making them. Um, how about in terms of types of watches? Have you done any changing? Have you gone from one kind to another? One type to another as your knowledge builds, and if you went backwards, it would be a mistake on something? No? No growth? Uh-oh, frying pan time. Okay, listen, you guys, it really what I wanted to do today was sort of to talk about ways that we can alert each other about ways to avoid mistakes. 11, you love your watches, and that's all that counts. That's the most important thing. And you know what you want, and you know what you should, that's good for you, not for me or anybody else. And so that I think is another thing important. I was talking to a rancher earlier today. He says, well, in fact, at the beginning, he says, don't buying hyperbole is the biggest mistake you can make, I think. The Icon is so fun. I think they were risking legal issues if they put it into production. I don't know what legal issues they would have raised, but it was. I talked to Malin about that, and you may be right because he was very. It was funny. I wish I had asked my dad in his Abercrombie and Fitch watch in the 60s. Wow, yeah. Abercrombie and Fitch in the 60s is not anything like the Abercrombie and Fitch of the 90s or the 2000s. Anyway, well, look, guys, thanks for dropping by and putting up with my eccentricities. We ought to put up with each other's eccentricities and enjoy a watch collection. Take care.